Metal Gear Solid is one of the most consistent game series of all time, with each of the mainline entries keeping the core gameplay but enhancing it in one way or another. Now, Metal Gear wasn't perfect, the controls were awkward, the cutscenes were long, and at times the plot was so tangled up it was ridiculous, but each entry was unapologetically Metal Gear. When you look at the game series that started in the same era, Medal of Honor, Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, there was always other series that shared a lot of DNA with them, but Metal Gear was practically impossible to copy. Sure, there are absolutely games in the same genre, but nothing could rival Kojima's work. If you go back through the games today, nearly a decade after the last entry, it's kind of insane how well they hold up. They truly are examples of timeless games. We have the first one, probably the most amount of iconic moments from the series.
You're pretty good.
It's like one of my Japanese animes.
Metal Gear.
You start the game with this view of Shadow Moses, you get this classic alert music, the game over screen that becomes synonymous with the rest of the games.
Snake, are you okay? Snake?
This is where it all started. This game really does deliver on what Kojima promises for the rest of the series. Fourth wall breaks, campy characters, confusing storylines, all wrapped up in fun action gameplay, creating a package where ultimately everything has aged really well.
Snake, in China they say, when walking through a melon patch, don't adjust your sandals.
Okay, maybe not everything. Then we have Metal Gear Solid 2. The hatred for Raiden in this game is kind of legendary. You always hear stories about how people were flipping out at the time of release because you weren't playing as Snake. But when you actually play the game, not playing as Snake is actually one of the greatest tools that Kojima could have used to help the player resonate with the story.
That is not Solid Snake.
Towards the end, you get these really creepy interactions with the GWAI where you start to ask questions, and having us play as someone new to the series helps with that feeling of uncertainty, at least a lot more than if you were playing as Snake. I can imagine at the time, Kojima's story about algorithmic takeovers of people's lives and curated information through the internet was probably at the same level of laughable campiness as some of the beats from 1, but playing it today almost feels like heeding a warning too late. It's insane to me just how well this game ended up predicting its future.
Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between reality and a game.
Oh, and this game has a bisexual vampire in it. Snake Eater's where it gets juicy. Metal Gear Solid 3 is my personal favourite. The series was always called a stealth action series, but it didn't really feel like true stealth until this game. Got jungle warfare, Cold War espionage, camo indexes. This game really does a great job of tweaking the MGS formula just enough where you really do feel like you're playing a different character in a different time period, with different rules, but you can still recognise the Metal Gear DNA. Story-wise, this game's pretty cut and dry and fairly simple, especially when compared to the previous titles, but by no means does that mean the impact or the quality has been diluted. In fact, I'd probably argue that this game has the most wrenching moments, a story just filled with tragic characters. We finally get introduced to Big Boss and see how he got started, being manipulated by his government just like his descendants. We have the Boss, a veteran soldier that ironically doesn't want anybody to fight anymore. Eva, Zero, Ocelot, Sigyn, Raiden's gay granddad, every character in this game comes together beautifully. For all its camouflage and survival mechanics, the game's real heart was in its final moments. This slow, inevitable death of someone who gives everything, knowing that no one would ever understand her. The fact that the gameplay is the best in the series and is yet somehow one-upped by the story is a testament to how strong of a masterpiece this game is. And then there's 4. I won't lie, I don't really like this game. Whereas the other titles felt like they were constantly compounding in quality, Guns of the Patriots doesn't really make the big leaps that the other games did, it just pushes the Snake Eater formula into the modern setting. I remember the camo suit being kinda cool, and the rewards for non-lethal boss takedowns were fun, but beyond that, I don't really see a reason to play 4 over Snake Eater, at least in terms of the gameplay. But of course, there's always the point that 4 isn't really about the gameplay, it's about the story. Remember how I said the story for these games was tangled up and a bit confusing? I understand that Kojima had to wrap up the story for all of the characters in the previous 3 games, but he also did that while introducing new characters. I just felt that the story ended up feeling really bloated, with every 10 minutes of gameplay there being a 50-minute cutscene, and that's kind of how the gameplay loop goes. In fact, I'm pretty sure this game still has the world record for the longest cutscene. I think the people that really love this game specifically have a really special place for it and can play it over and over, but to me, I think the flaws make it a kind of one-and-done game, which is something I wouldn't say about any of the others. Oh, and there's a bisexual vampire. The Phantom Pain, beautiful and unfinished. This is a real Marmite title, you either love it or hate it. Me personally, I'm on the love side. Even with the multiple playthroughs of all the previous games, I still have not sunk as much time into a single title as I have in Phantom Pain. But still, it's really fun to look at what other people have to say about it. I mean, here's a very insightful comment from Deleted on Reddit. I think it's really important to focus on this last sentence where he's talking about Metal Gear Solid 5. It also feels like you took a ton of inspiration from Red Dead Redemption with the horses and gameplay. Lol, I don't know. I couldn't have said it better myself. This is a very accurate evaluation of Metal Gear Solid 5, but what Deleted fails to explain is that this game is also Armored Core, Army of Two and Fable. The freedom that this game allowed for is still unrivaled even today. Every mission felt like a puzzle with dozens of possible solutions, and the game gave you the tools, the systems and the space to invent your own approach. You could sneak in at night time with tranquilizers, play it old school, or you could call in an airstrike, storm the front gates, knock out the survivors by throwing magazines at their heads, and then escape by tying a balloon to a crate and getting sucked up into the atmosphere.
Mission complete, boss.
This level of variety was often encouraged too, with enemies adapting to your playstyle if you stuck with it for too long. They'd wear helmets if you relied on headshots, or they'd set up decoys if you favoured stealth. The fact that you could still stay lethal or non-lethal, you'd just have to go about it in different ways, was a really cool way of adding artificial difficulty as the game went on.
Here we go again.
I think the narrative in this game is deliberately incomplete, not just because of all the behind the scenes turmoil that happened with it, but I think it's by design. By the end of the game, you're stranded in this world where loyalty is weaponized and history is rewritten. It's unsettling, a little bit unsatisfying, but profoundly in line with the themes that Kojima had been building towards for decades, specifically with Big Boss's storyline.
I'm already a demon.
I miss Metal Gear Solid because nothing has truly replaced it, not in tone, not in scope, and honestly, not in levels of fun. I miss it for its mad little quirks that it would throw onto normal stealth gameplay. I miss its social commentary, I miss its passion, its bisexual vampires. Nothing else has really dared to be so full of contradictions and so tangled, but so confident in itself. Like I said at the beginning, it really wasn't perfect, but its flaws had such a charm to them, I practically considered them perks, and I haven't felt that about a game in years. And that's exactly why I loved it and why I miss it today.